Please, sir, I want some more.
What?
Please, sir, I want some more.
More?
The Croydon Tramlink is a British low-floor light rail tram system. Yes, I'm seriously reviewing this today. Built by a random assortment of people working to speed up the gentrification of South London and to reduce the number of buses in the area by -25%. The Croydon Tramlink has been a key component of transportation in Croydon for more than 23 years. Obviously it can be seen serving the town of Croydon, but it can also be seen linking nearby areas such as Birkbeck, New Addington, Wimbledon, Mitcham, Wadden Marsh, Merton and most importantly, IKEA Ampere. So how has the Croydon Tramlink handled its passengers over the years? Do I think it's a really good tram network that totally doesn't need any form of improvement or expansions? Or do I think the exact opposite? Let's find out. This is the first review of a tram network that I have done in this series, so it's only fair that I clarify that light rail and tram networks will be reviewed slightly differently than how I typically review trains. Not only will we see if the trams themselves are good or not, but we shall also examine how well the network itself runs and connects with the areas it serves. Let's begin with a brief overview of what trams actually are. A tram is a railway vehicle that still runs on rails, but has a smaller profile in both height and width to allow it to better serve urban environments and run right into towns and cities. Unlike a big heavyweight train, a tram's design allows for it to navigate tighter curves and run on the roads shared by cars, trucks, and buses, though if the roads aren't designed well, or you have extremely smart bus drivers who stop 32 meters away from the curb, they can easily block the passage of trams and cause extra confusion and delay. Don't worry viewers, this never happens in the UK, let alone on the Croydon Tramlink. Trams can be seen across the world, even in third world countries like America, and are especially prevalent across Europe, especially Germany, where pretty much any large town or city has some tram system. Some countries like the Netherlands even treat trams similar to buses by only having doors on one side and only stopping at a tram stop if you press the bell. Speaking of which, trams are considerably more efficient at carrying passengers than buses are. Your typical Enviro 200 bus can hold around 60 passengers at a pinch, and the double-decker Scania Omnicity, known as Yowah's favorite bus, can carry just under 90 passengers. Meanwhile, the trams on the Croydon Tramlink can carry more than twice that, at up to 200 passengers per unit, which is pretty impressive when the trams run every 5 minutes at times. Only buses like the Van Hool GG300 can beat that capacity, and good luck driving that bus in the UK without curbing every high street and bus station in sight. Trams also use different safety systems when running on roads, though this will vary from country to country. We can also see here that trams have different traffic signals, so that motorists don't get confused when the tram is given the right of way. It's also worth mentioning that trams in the UK use kilometers per hour instead of miles per hour for the speed limits. Here's a quick refresher in case you have forgotten the conversion rates. So now you know the basics of what trams are. Let's talk more about the Tramlink system itself. As the name of the system implies, it principally serves the town of Croydon. Despite what the local media and news reports would have you think, Croydon is actually one of the safest suburbs of London. The crime rate is lower than Ballymurray. The same applies to drug crime. There have been no recorded history of riots in the town or its suburbs, and the concept of looting, or gangs for that matter, are a complete fabrication.
This section has been approved for broadcast by the London Borough of Croydon and Conservative Party.
Two types of trams are used on the Tramlink, comprised of 23 Bombardier CR 4000 and 12 Stadler Vario barn trams. Both units are of similar size, can hold the same amount of passengers and are fast. The top speed may only be 80 km per hour, but the trams have an acceleration rate of 1.2 meters per second squared, which is excellent for this kind of work. If you're curious as to what I think of riding on these trams, it's honestly below average. Both trams have minimal padding on the seats, with the Vario barn ones being only slightly better to sit in. It's a 2+2 seating arrangement with plenty of standing room, though the seat quality makes me wish I was instead riding any other bus type in London. No, wait, I take it back. Since the Tramlink is a low floor system, there is level boarding between the platform and tram, making it very accessible to the disabled. Both trams have a pair of wheelchair spaces on board as well as space for push chairs. Opening windows and air conditioning are provided, but no USB charging points because lol. The displays on board the CR4000 have been changed recently and are still basic dot matrix strip displays of before, which is pathetic. Here are what the displays on the Belgian Bombardier T2000 trams look like after refurbishment. And don't come up with the excuse of these trams being newer. In fact, these trams were built in 1993 and still have the old displays fitted too. These same issues regarding the displays also apply to the Vario barn units as well, though I didn't record any decent footage either. The fare structure is the same as it is for London buses. £1.75 using Oyster or contactless, and you can make unlimited interchange journeys to the tram or bus within an hour of purchase. Of course I say that, but the Croydon Tramlink operates under the honour system, so the actual ticket price is £0 per journey, unless you get caught by the Daleks, I mean ticket inspectors. Of course I pay my fares as usual, though for some reason, the ticket validators don't seem to react to my ticket. Oh, I almost forgot, Bus Sabre tickets are not valid on the Tramlink. Anyone remember those? Also, like the buses, you only need to touch in when boarding the Tramlink. This can cause confusion to people at stations which offer National Rail interchange such as Wimbledon and Elmers End, where both types of Oyster card readers are used. TfL have tried their best to teach people how to properly do it, but people will continue to get confused by this for decades to come. The network consists of 3 lines that branch out from the town centre, with a one-way system right in the middle. The sections between Wimbledon and Wandle Park as well as between Elmers End and Lloyd Park were once existing sections of British Rail. These were gutted during Tramlink's construction in the 90s, and very little evidence is around to show that the Class 456 used to run through here. Sadly, the platform lengths of 30 meters prevents the trams running in multiple, like what is done in Manchester, and this means that overcrowding happens all the time, even outside of the rush hour, and it gets pretty annoying too. I can't believe I'm saying this, but even the United States of America, a country known to have a public transport budget rivaling that of the Central African Republic, knows to run trams in pairs to alleviate overcrowding. The tram stops themselves are also very basic. Most of them have a bin, a shelter, live tram updates and a platform. Also lots of free oxygen in the air, but not much else. Some tram stops are lucky enough to provide interchange with the buses, and this can be with a large bus station with several bus stands, or a measly bus stop with buses only stopping in one direction, because one-way system lol. One thing that really irks me are the timetables. They don't have the exact tram times for daily services. Here it just says that the trams run every 7 to 15 minutes, and that's only helpful if you've seen the last one go by recently. I hate this crap so much, and it's something that the timetables for the buses are just as guilty of as well. Just tell me what are the times for the tram, you donuts. Sadly, the rest of the infrastructure of the Tramlink is nothing short of miserable. Excluding the one-way system in Croydon, there are 12 sections of single line running on the network. Keep in mind, this is after they've added extra sections of double track over the years, after they realized this mistake. In fact, the network hasn't seen any sort of expansions or new stops since it opened, with the exception of Centrail. Every tram network in the UK has had some form of expansion since it first opened. Every single one, except the Croydon Tramlink because lol. This results in trams frequently waiting for other trams to clear bottlenecks, and bunching happening almost all of the time on every route, especially the case for trams on the Wimbledon branch. Frankly, the footage I have here speaks for itself, and it's just so entertaining to watch short-sighted decisions from the 90s continue to affect us to this very day, and possibly for many more years to come. Another issue is the speed limits on the route. After the tragic accident at Sandylands, TfL reduced the speed limits on the Tramlink network at multiple points, including making trams slow down to 40 km per hour. Just for some foot crossings on sections they should be doing twice that. I understand that TfL want the network to be safer in case of another accident, but I'm of the strong opinion that teaching people how to use level crossings is more effective than making trams less damaging in case they hit you. Remember that felt tip pens are perfectly safe to use, as long as you don't eat them. So teach people not to eat pens, instead of reduce the ink in them to be less toxic. Even a giant sign that said warning giant metal oblong approaching, move away if you value your skin, would be something to mitigate this a bit. There is no future worth discussing regarding the Tramlink. Every proposal for expansions and extensions have been vote kicked instantly by unknown parties, and the planned extension to Sutton was frozen after someone stole Sadiq Khan's piggy bank. So it's most likely going to stay the same for quite some time. Conclusion. The Croydon Tramlink is mediocre at best, especially when compared to other tram networks in the UK. This fictional map drawn by Anthony Norris Watson shows the scope of potential the Tramlink has if TfL decides to invest an extra £1.40 into its future. Imagine for a second a world where bus routes like the 50 no longer sit in traffic for 2 years near Thornton Heath. A world where you never have to ride the 119 down to Bromley. A world where the S1 bus route is replaced by a tram and moves faster than 20 miles per hour, and of course, a world where you can tell the 131 to eat a dick. This is a future that TfL are doing everything to not reach, and have instead deluded themselves by thinking that investing in 93 million electric Enviro 400s will solve the problem of pollution and overcrowding in London. Spoiler, it won't. Expanding the tram network further from Croydon to take pressure off the road from the existing buses will. Whether this will be rectified in the future is anybody's guess, but it needs to happen sooner rather than later if the South London gentrification continues at its current rate. As a quick side note, I want to say that I don't think the Croydon Tramlink is the worst tram network I've used. I recently rode on the Charleroi tram, and that's as easily the contender for that award. Also, goodness me, Charleroi is a city I never want to go back to ever again. Keep in mind that I actually like going to bad places on purpose for the lols, but even I have had to rethink my standards. Seriously, don't go to Charleroi, please. Now you know my thoughts on the Croydon Tramlink. Go out there and be grateful that nobody in Croydon has learned how to steal satellite equipment for